Did Democrats learn the right lessons from their defeat in Tennessee this week? Well, Chris Stirewalt has his doubts, which he will explain in this week's edition of Whole Hog Politics. I'm Bill Salmon. I'm so lucky to be joined by my old pal Chris Stirewalt. We both work at The Hill and News Nation, but only you, Chris, are the author of Whole Hog Politics, the must-read political newsletter published every week at thehill.com. Chris, I love your column today because you take a contrarian view of the results of this week's special election in Tennessee, where Republican Matt Van Epps beat Democrat Aftyn Behn by 9 points to become the newest member of Congress. Now, most of the press is saying this is good news for Democrats because they lost by only single digits in a very red district. But you, Chris, say Democrats, quote, just got a very expensive lesson in the perils of ignoring, and here I'll paraphrase, ignoring the importance of moderation. In other words, Democrats should be careful about nominating far-left liberals like Behn, who once said she wanted to defund the police, and even that she hated Nashville and country music. Is that a fair assessment of your column this week, Chris? If not, correct me.
Well, I like how you're not even going to talk about your new backdrop and your podcaster guy headphones, and how I feel like you're about to sell me nutritional supplements.
That's later in the podcast.
The hypness energy coming off of you, the podcast bro energy coming off of you in waves. Look, it is good news for Democrats that they, in a district where they should, it's not a fair marker to say you don't expect a candidate in a special election to perform as well as the presidential nominee of the party in power a year ago. That's not a fair standard. The right standard is, what was the midterm number almost 4 years ago? That's what you want to know. And by that standard,
what was it? I'm trying to remember. I don't remember.
I think it's about it. It's Trump won by
22. Well, yeah. But what about the midterm?
I forget what the PVI for the district is, but it's about 20, right?
Okay.
So a race that Republicans should have won, maybe we'll do the counterfactual. If Van Epps had won there by 15 points, you'd say, okay, Republicans looking pretty good. Looking pretty good. That he won by 9, yes, it is definitely good news for Democrats in the sense that the electorate includes dispirited Republicans, a number of dispirited Republicans. The electorate includes a bunch of fired up Democrats, and that independents, persuadable voters, are making a decisive choice against the party in power. All of that is good. If you're a Democrat, all of that is good. It's not as good as what we saw at the beginning of last month, right? A month ago in Virginia and New Jersey, it was a slaughter for Republicans, right? Up and down the ballot in every corner of that race. And it even extended to places like Mississippi, to Georgia, to the Deep South. It was clear that, so if you're a Democrat a month ago, felt a lot better than this week. Now,
and by the way, those Democrats were kind of moderate, right? I mean, in Virginia and in New Jersey, these were pretty moderate Democrats. They were not like Aftyn Behn.
Right. So think about this special election that crops up as a little surprise gift that emerges for Democrats in Tennessee. Now, under normal circumstances, right, this is a district that includes a big chunk of Nashville, Davidson County, and therein, but it also reaches out into
the country.
Yeah, it stretches out into some rural central Tennessee. Mm-hmm. This is a place where Aftyn Behn would be a perfectly normal and expected candidate for Democrats, which is to say a sacrificial lamb building her name ID for municipal or local or state politics. She's young, she's telegenic, she had all of the right positions to enthuse the Democratic base. And if this was I'll put it this way. Next November, do you think Democrats are going to contest this seat? No. They're not going to contest this seat because it won't be a special election. Turnout will go up. The district will look more like itself. Van Epps is going to be an incumbent.
Yeah,
and
he'll win by an even bigger
and
margin,
and Democrats will say, we're not going to waste any money there. So this little thing, this little special present presented itself. Who will run for a seat like that? You don't have that much control. So right now, the Democratic the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee and super PACs and others are hunting for candidates around the country. They're going around the country and they're saying, who can we get to run in these places? In Tennessee, that's, I think, Tennessee 5. In Metro Nashville, it just organically happened. Here's the problem. When the climate is bad, it's easy to deal with kooky candidates or fringy candidates. And I'm not saying she's kooky, but it's easy to deal with ideologically problematic candidates because nobody wants to run, right? Yeah. Think of the challenge that Republicans are facing right now. They can't even get their incumbents to run for re-election.
Yeah, a lot of retirements.
A ton of retirements. So they're having a hard time even keeping incumbents, let alone. Imagine you're from the National Republican Campaign Committee and you got to fly out to Wolf Snout, Arkansas and say, hey, you know what we'd like you to do? We'd like you to dig into about $3-4 million of your personal fortune and run for Congress. People hate Congress, Republicans hate Congress, and everybody's getting ready for Republicans to take a loss. They're having the opposite problem of Democrats, but that means that they can also be more, in an odd way, they don't have the pressures on selection. Democrats' problem is when a nomination looks valuable, you have more people seeking that nomination. So Democrats believe that they will win no matter what. And if you are a progressive, if you're a democratic socialist, if you're a radical, you say, hey, this is our chance to ride the wave and get in. And in fact, you'll even tell yourself the way for us to win, Graham Plattner in Maine, for example, the way for us to win is to be radical because people want radicalness. Right. This is, of course, soothing self-talk that you say to yourself. The truth is that there are districts in America where Aftyn, Behn would be a perfectly good candidate, right? There are blue districts that are D+5 or better, where right. She'd be a perfectly fine candidate. She isn't a good candidate for that district. Right. And so I guess this is
so you're saying not just generically that Democrats should beware of nominating liberals. You're saying more specifically they should beware of nominating liberals in moderate districts.
Yeah, go crazy. Right? Yeah, Zoran Mamdani wouldn't win in Tennessee 5 either, and but he'll do just fine in New York. And you have to. This is. I'm old. I've moved recently, and I was going through all my old lanyards.
Yeah.
That I've just thrown on the back of a doorknob for years and years and years, and I had to move them around. And you know what I found? I found a lanyard for covering the 2004 John Kerry and John Edwards Believe in America post-convention swing through.
I remember it.
Through this great nation of ours.
I remember it.
And I thought, wow. Number one, I am old. I am definitely old. Number two, the presumptions of parties going into elections, right? What do we need? What are we supposed to do? In a quadrennial presidential year, you have to have a message. You have to have a reason. Kamala Harris there was no reason that Kamala Harris articulated why she wanted to be or needed to be president. She was a mush. If you're running for president, your party is seeking to obtain or retain the White House, you got to have a message. If you're in a midterm and you're running for control of Congress, if you're the out party, you don't need a message. You don't need a leader. You don't need any of that stuff. You just say, change, baby. We just want change. Yeah. And therefore, you don't have to have a contract,
a grand vision, like, nope. and that's what your point about Kerry and Edwards was. At that time, they weren't really with all of the the terrorism fears and the wake of 9/11 and all that. They weren't the right people for the moment.
Any chance I have to go back and watch Dick Cheney unhinge his jaw, open his mandibles, and consume John Edwards
At
whole.
the debate.
I love there's at one moment where Cheney is eating his liver, that Edwards picks up his coffee cup like he is like having
like a life raft,
like a cozy tea time. Like, oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
But they didn't have it. But in 2006, when Rahm Emanuel was the chairman, he was a congressman from Chicago in those days, and he was the chairman of the Democratic Congressional Campaign Committee. And he said, do I want liberal nominees? Yes. Do I want moderate nominees? Yes. Do I want conservative Democratic nominees? Yes.
But
I
all
want
in
them-
the right districts.
Exactly. And if you look back at the Democrats who won in 2006, they needed 11 seats. They got 31.
Yeah.
If you go back and look at the places where they won and see who did it, Rahm Emanuel recruited city councilmen from Tempe. He recruited these in upstate New York. He found pro-life Democrats in ethnic enclave neighborhoods in Chicago.
Those were the days.
He dug and dug and dug and found the candidates. And when progressives said, we need a bold vision, he said, shut up about your bold vision. We don't need a bold vision. We need change. And we need to say that people are unhappy with the direction of things in Iraq, and people are unhappy with Bush and Cheney. And it's time for Republicans to get their comeuppance, and let us allow the voters to deliver that comeuppance without arguing with them. And I think that's just the way I would say it all is, don't argue with your voters. If they want to use you, as Bill Withers said, if it feels this good getting used, keep on using me till you use me up. That's what Democrats should be saying to voters.
Yeah. What a great song, by the way. The one last question on this topic, Chris. We talk about, you wisely mentioned Rahm Emanuel as an example of somebody who did it well. He was the chair of as you say, of the DCCC, and picked the right, recruited the right candidates for the right districts. The question looking forward to 2026 is whether the Democrats will have the discipline to, because the energy is all on the left, right? I mean, nationally, the energy is on the left. You mentioned Graham Plattner, who is running for the Senate in the state of Maine. He's running for the Democratic nomination there. He once described himself as a communist. Zoran Mamdani, of course, describes himself as a socialist. This Aftyn Behn, talked about all kinds of crazy things, defund the police, hate Nashville, blah, blah, blah. And the question is, will the Democrats have the discipline to moderate when moderation is necessary, or will they continue to put people like Aftyn Behn in races that really aren't right for them?
Well, the problem is there's no they, right?
Yeah.
There's
that. Yeah.
We have obliterated our two
parties.
Yeah, there are no parties. There's no one in charge.
Yeah.
Part of why you can't have a Rahm Emanuel in 2006 is that the parties have been so gutted, and because of low barriers to entry, thanks to social media, because of many things in the digital revolution, and our absolutely preposterous system of primary elections, partisan primary elections. The they is, I don't know, 12, 15 million Democrats around the country, right?
Yeah,
That's the they. And it's a worthwhile question. In New Jersey and in Virginia, the they in those places, which are high frequency, strongly partisan Democrats in those places, said, we are not going to mess around. We don't need in Tennessee, again, this was a surprise gift. But in those places, Democrats thought, okay, what do we want to do? Do I want all my dreams to come true, or do I want to win?
Yeah. Right.
And what populists and what demagogues say in these situations is, why not have both, right? What Graham Plattner is saying in Maine is not dissimilar to what many Republicans were saying in 2022. We're going to win anyway. Why not have both? Why not move the needle ideologically or move the needle attitudinally and get the seat anyway? And win anyway. I bring it up all the time, but do you remember when we were hosting a debate in Iowa? We were at Iowa State, and Michelle Bachmann was on stage, and she was asked the question basically by our then colleague Chris Wallace. Come on. She was asked the question.
Get real.
Like, okay, you're a member of the House. Nobody knows you. That hasn't happened since James Garfield. You're not going to be elected president. And do you remember what she said? I was standing right next to you, and she said, any one of us
would be better
on this stage will beat Barack Hussein Obama.
Yeah.
The question is, do you want a fighter, a real conservative, blah, 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 blah. And I looked at the people on the stage, and I thought, oh, no. You got big problems if you believe that Barack Obama, the incumbent president, is so vulnerable that just any House member from Minnesota will beat him. So the question is always, how seriously do you take the threat of the other side? I think for Democrats, they're not taking Republicans very seriously right now. Yeah. And they may believe that the magic moment has come where they can have both ideological extremity and victory. Yeah. And maybe this setback in Tennessee, it's the difference of 4 or 5 points. Maybe that will be enough to remind some Democrats, hey, we have to discipline ourselves.
Yeah. Chris, let's talk for a minute about the presidential race coming up in 2028, a mere 3 years from now. The Democratic side's more interesting, of course, and it strikes me when you look at the field there, we've talked before about the different lanes. You've got the liberal lane, you've got the moderate lane. To me, and correct me if I'm wrong, the liberal lane, as we've discussed before, is pretty well dominated by AOC. Who knows whether she'll run, but she seems to be the big dog in that particular lane. But it seems like the moderate lane's got a bunch of people, whether it's Shapiro, Whitmer, J.B. Pritzker, Andy Beshear, Mark Kelly. And my thought is that the only person that seems to be maybe straddling both lanes, at least in terms of perceptions, is Gavin Newsom. When you think of Gavin Newsom, and this may or may not be fair, but I think when a lot of people think of Gavin Newsom, they don't necessarily instantly put him into one of those boxes. Yeah, they don't think, oh God, he's an AOC liberal, or they don't think, oh, he's just a milquetoast, a moderate, because and we can get into what he really is, because as the governor of California, you got to be pretty liberal, and I would make the argument that perhaps he is more of a true liberal than anything else, but. Just, in terms of his demeanor and the way he's presented himself and done the podcasts with the conservatives and the way he talks and everything else, he seems to have, for the moment, he seems to have the hot hand.
Ideological flexibility and ideological incoherence is seen as oftentimes a liability. It is often not a liability. Gavin Newsom is not a progressive. He is not a moderate. He is Gavin Newsom, and he would like your vote. So you tell him what you want him to be, and he will be it. And he has been a bunch of different things in his career, but
sort
always
of like Buttigieg in a way, right? A little bit.
Buttigieg is
he's more of a progressive.
He's a kombucha, right? He is like, if you have a taste for Pete Buttigieg, which is a sort of a technocratic, very specific thing, data driven,
super articulate.
Yeah, he's almost European, right? It's an almost European kind of technocracy, where he's non-ideological, but in a different kind of way. If Pete Buttigieg was not doing what he was doing, he would be the CEO of a tech company somewhere. You get the vibes,
like a Tim Cook kind of a
Gavin Newsom's hair, Gavin Newsom's smile, Gavin Newsom's warm and affable way. He's a politician, right? Yeah. He's just a politician. That's who he is. And the line from The Hunt for Red October, he says, "I'm a politician." And that means that if I am not kissing babies, I'm stealing their candy. Americans see, know, and understand what a politician is, and they frankly appreciate. Nobody cares if you're flip-flopping, effectively and moving in their direction. Donald Trump has had every position. This is a guy who was once in his life reticent to oppose partial birth abortion, and now it's like as long as you give me power, I'll tell you what you want to hear. Americans don't strenuously object to that. So Gavin Newsom's oleaginousness and his superficial appearance is not any kind of a liability, and it's probably an advantage.
Yeah.
You'd have to say it's AOC's if she wants. By the way, did you read Tim Alberta and his profile on Josh Shapiro?
I was going to ask you about that because he said he was interviewing Josh Shapiro and he brought up Kamala Harris's recent book, and in which Kamala Harris basically trashes Josh Shapiro and says, oh, he was measuring the drapes and he wanted to be in on all the meetings and he was very high maintenance, and Shapiro went off on Kamala Harris.
The excellence of that profile. Every profile that Tim Alberta does.
Yeah, he's so good.
I can't believe Tim Alberta still gets people to talk to him.
Yeah.
But he puts in the work and he puts in the time, and he's such an excellent writer. And there's a passage in the piece where he lays this on him and puts it right up Shapiro's snoot. Like, there you go. No, this is what she said. This is how she trashed you. This is how she belittled you. And he calls BS. He does this stuff. And then Alberta noticed, he feels regret. And the regret is that he is such a disciplined politician
that he can't show the flash of anger that the voters want.
Now he's mad. Well, so the argument for Shapiro, there's no argument to be made for Gretchen Whitmer. She is this amazingly overrated talent because demographically, she's from the right state.
Yeah.
She is a lady. So she's checking all these boxes. But her presidential campaign ended the day that she held up the binder in front of her face in the Oval Office with Donald Trump. And it's like, good. So we wish you well. A potential running mate for somebody, maybe.
Yeah.
But she's been one of the great overrated talents. Shapiro is tough. Yeah. And he is disliked by so many Democrats in Pennsylvania for the reasons that make him an effective candidate, which are he's totally disciplined. He is a totally disciplined person, and there is no we're gonna let this one slide. We're gonna do whatever. He is like a machine.
Yeah.
And there are downsides to that you can't build the network around you, and that's what nailed him for Harris, and his mishandling of the moment revealed a lot. But you'd have to put Shapiro on the list of people that if Newsom is not a prohibitive favorite, but he is a heavy favorite right now. You'd have to say Gavin Newsom's a heavy favorite.
You're completely anticipating my question, because I was going to ask you, do you think, if you put them, we put them in lanes before. Now let's put them in tiers of likelihood of getting the nomination. Lately, I've been thinking that if I had to really pick a very top tier, and I had to pick somebody in addition to Newsom, I probably would pick Shapiro. I would pick Newsom and Shapiro maybe at this moment. Now, in the polls, that doesn't show up because Shapiro is not really getting a lot of action in the polls, but they're sort of meaningless.
They're just name ID polls, right?
But now. I mean, is that crazy for me to think of like his stand-in would be Shapiro if somehow Newsom falters?
I would tier them this way. I would say the only person with Gavin Newsom is Kamala Harris, and she is sort of fatally flawed.
Yeah.
But at this point, you have to say organization, name identification, resources, who can do it. She's sort of a lot like Mike Pence was for 24, right? Got a lot of the credentialing, got a lot of the stuff, but has a problem in her party that she will probably not be able to overcome. And I bet she doesn't even run.
Yeah, I
But
just don't think she can run. I don't think she will run, and if she does run, I don't think she's remotely electable. I just don't.
but tier wise, you'd say, okay, on the factory floor, that's it.
Yeah.
And then I would say the second tier, there's one person in the second tier, and that person is Alexandria
I was going to say
Ocasio-Cortez.
AOC, yeah.
And then down in tier 3, you got Shapiro
Rahm
is at
Emanuel, and
well, that's
he might be in tier 4, but go
I
ahead.
I don't want to cast aspersions on his honor, but he's a tier 4, right?
Yeah, yeah.
But down in tier 3 of the you never know, right? You never know if things add up. So down there, you'd put Andy Bashir,
yeah,
the governor, and so
Pritzker. Pritzker?
okay. I mean, if I'll put Andy Bashir in 3,
how about Mark Kelly? With Mark Kelly, or
that's
no?
a 3.
He seems to be kind of hot lately, but I don't know that he's going anywhere.
Mark Kelly is probably where he should be, right?
Yeah.
Senate is probably pretty good for him. He's not a natural.
No,
He
he's
lacks.
not a Newsom in terms of
he is. There's an awkwardness to him. He is uncomfortable doing the slick and slimy work of politics,
right.
and it seems to pain him. But Newsom has joy in slickness. So there are all of those
That's
people.
That's a bumper sticker. Joy and slickness. Vote Gavin Newsom.
And there are a bunch of names that we have not yet thought of, or that we're not thinking of right now. So we know that a year from today, when it's the beginning of December of 2026, the Democratic primary will be underway. It will be 1 millisecond after we put the totals up.
Yeah,
about
from the midterms.
Obviously, when we are the first to call control of the House at News Nation, because naturally,
DDHQ.
But 1 year from now, we will be fully underway. The Democrats will have set their calendar, and all these people. So a bunch of trial balloons will get floated, and a bunch of people will talk about this stuff and who's going to be this and who's going to be that. But right now, you just have to say it's not Newsom's to lose, but he is a heavy favorite.
Yeah,
money. He's from the correct state he's from the giant gorilla of Democratic delegate states.
Yeah, more electoral votes there than any state, I think.
And he's clawed his way to massive name recognition. It's very hard and very expensive to become famous.
Yeah.
And he already has that.
We're almost out of time, but Chris, I want to take a moment to talk about the Republican side. I mentioned that it's not quite as interesting as the Democratic side because, you've got the Republicans are in office and Donald Trump. But by the way, I noticed we got 20 minutes into this conversation. This is amazing. Before the word Trump was uttered, and that wasn't by design, but it was just it's actually kind of unusual. Like usually it's hard to have a talk about politics without Trump somehow entering the conversation. Now everybody talks about J.D. Vance, the prohibitive front runner, yada yada, and when you really look at the names and you look at the people that are actually even being considered for the Republican nomination, it's really usually the conversation is between J.D. Vance and Marco Rubio. But there are a couple of others, that are kind of out there too. Donald Trump Jr., Ted Cruz. Let's start with Donald Trump Jr. Is that like a real thing, or is that just like it's a weird time we're in, right? But so I guess that could be. Who else could be the more natural heir, literally heir to the Trump era than Donald Trump Jr.?
Well,
I'm not advocating. I'm just asking.
Let's put it this way. Right now, Donald Trump is massively unpopular, but he's still holding on with Republicans. He's at 84%. So we got our new Gallup numbers, which Gallup's survey methods are good. But the best thing about Gallup is we can compare them consistently over presidents going back to Truman.
Right. No other poll goes back that far.
And Donald Trump has been just taking a beating, right? Yeah. He's at 36%, only 2 points better than he was right after January 6th.
In fairness, most polls have him at about 41. right? I mean,
Uh,
the averages and the
the
different polls. I totally
the
agree with you
the
about Gallup.
the whole hog average, which is the only average you really need, obviously. I'll tell you right now, the whole hog average is
In this week's newsletter, which, by the way, ladies and gentlemen, you can get for free by simply scanning the QR code that's going to appear on your screen right this moment.
blah,
Boom.
blah, blah.
Okay, what is the average?
38.4.
Oh, really? Because wasn't it like I thought you had it at like 40 or 41 like a week ago?
We
Two
were
weeks
off for
ago?
Thanksgiving last week,
Oh, that's right.
and
Okay.
two
It's
2 weeks
fallen
ago,
that far.
it's gone down 4 points.
Oh my
His
goodness.
net score which is the average disapproval minus the average approval, is negative 21 points, and he's down 4 points from last week.
Wow.
It's a real garbage fire situation right now
Yeah.
for Republicans, and they know it and they're feeling it. But the most important number, and there's a great piece in here from Natalie Jackson, who's a great pollster data person whose work I enjoy. 84% for Donald Trump with Republicans is not very
Yeah.
good. 84,
Yeah.
84% is too low.
Yeah.
And
Because it had been over 90 at one
yeah, it
point.
was 93
Yeah.
before.
Right.
So what JD Vance and I suppose Donald Trump Jr. Have to think about is how much will Republicans want to keep it going? There's a world in which it all works, right?
Yeah.
That the tariffs work, that that the economy gets hot, that prices come down, that things are good, and we figure out a way to end the war in Ukraine, that we have resolution with this incipient war with Venezuela, that the good times get good.
Yeah.
And if that happens, no one will defeat JD Vance. JD Vance,
A lot of ifs, but go ahead. Yeah.
JD Vance will be George H.W. Bush.
Yeah.
You
Right.
can lip off to him, you can say whatever, but if Donald Trump has an approval rating of 95% with Republicans in January of 2028,
Yeah, 28. Yeah.
there's kiss it goodbye, everybody but JD Vance. On the other hand, if it's not working, so JD Vance's ability to ensorcel, to keep the MAGA movement with him is a very open question. He's never been their guy. He's not their kind of guy. And I that's a very open question. But success.
Same is sort of true with Marco, though, too. I mean,
Oh, well, he doesn't, he won't even play for those voters if he
Yeah.
runs.
Yeah.
That's those aren't his voters if he runs.
Right.
But JD Vance's premise is that Tucker Carlson, Peter Thiel, like there is this branch of the Republican Party that JD Vance has thrown his lot in very intensely, and he's got them. But it's unclear that he has the working class, blue collar, those voters those lower propensity voters who love Donald Trump and have turned out for him again and again. It is not at all clear that they dig him.
Amazing, from the author of Hillbilly Elegy from Appalachia. You know what I mean? Like this, that he's not going to get those voters. But I see what you're saying.
He's been if Gavin Newsom's been a lot of things in his life, JD Vance has been a lot of things in his life. We have met him in many guises,
right?
And he doesn't seem as natural as somebody like Newsom at the slickness part. He's running on anti-slickness while trying to be slick. It's a tough one. So it's a very long way of saying, if Donald Trump is rocking it with Republicans and JD Vance gets to play George H.W. Bush and say, I don't care if you don't like me. I don't care if you're not into me. You're going to back me because we're going to keep this good thing going, and I'll have the blessing of the president. Conversely, if Donald Trump's favorability or approval ratings with Republicans are in the 80s or even, which is a thing that happened to be in the 70s, no, JD Vance will get obliterated. And the exciting part about the Republicans, you say there's a lot more action on the Democratic side. This is true right now. It is also possible that we could end up with a snoozer of a Democratic primary.
Yeah, that is true.
And
it
the
could get
Republican
really interesting.
and the
on
Republicans
GOP
could
side.
be a wild coalition
Yeah.
of interesting factions attacking each other and a simmering stew of resentments and ambition, which I, for one, am here for.
Chris, you, in addition to writing Whole Hog Politics, you host a show called The Hill Sunday, which is a fantastic Sunday morning chat show. And we all love watching it. How is the show prep going for this weekend? Are you ready to kill it?
In our mailbag, we had the greatest letter from a reader who said that, well, he wanted a second installment of The Hill Sunday on Fridays, but just the panel, and said that it was like the McLaughlin group, that our panel was like the McLaughlin group.
Wow.
And I was extraordinarily flattered, because that is kind of what we want. And it's always helpful when you are on the panel, because you definitely get the vibe.
I'm old enough to have been on the McLaughlin group.
I've been on the McLaughlin group.
Well, that's right. We were both on sort of during the back nine of that program.
Yes.
It was fun to be there with John McLaughlin.
And Pat Buchanan and Eleanor Clift and all that stuff. But this week on the panel, we've got the great Molly Ball, formerly of the Wall Street Journal, who's out working on books, is on the panel. She is great. She's like kind of the ideal panel, the ideal kind of person that I love to have on the panel. Your old friend Chris Matthews is on the show.
I saw that.
He's got a book out about RFK Sr.
Yeah,
yep.
Right.
But I'm really interested in talking to him about media and politics and what has gone on in that space. We're going to talk to Kevin Stitt, the governor of Oklahoma, who is also the chairman of the National Governors Association. And at any moment, I would be able to tell you which Democrat. We are in negotiations with a number of congressional Democrats.
We're going to get there.
Who will be flying the flag for the blue team?
That's all the time we have. We will see you next time on another edition of Whole Hog Politics.